Hi guys, for today's lesson I thought we'd talk about how you actually begin improvising your solos. Most of us experience the problem that once we've started to get our scales down and we maybe know what we could play the scale over, we have this problem where it just sounds like a bunch of scale runs rather than a melody, right? So let me just give you some ideas of where to begin. So for this I'm going to use a little backing track in A flat minor, so that's really easy. Let's take a listen. Okay, so A flat minor is going to be 4th fret, so A flat's right there, 4th fret on your low E. So most of us kind of learn the basic minor pentatonic and we're pretty comfortable with the first pattern or the first box or position of it. So for those of you that don't know, that's going to look like, I call it big shapes and small shapes. So basically it's a repeating pattern of 3 small shapes and 2 big shapes. Okay, and then this low E is the same as the high E. So if we were to start at the A string, it's like small shape, small shape, small shape, big, big, and then that shape's going to be on the low E. So we've got big, and the 3 smalls, 2 bigs. And your minor targets are here, the D string, and then the low E. Okay, so as long as I know that pattern, I can move around in there. So what'll definitely make it sound like a scale is if you just play sequential order. Okay, that's called stepwise motion if you're a guitar nerd. Okay, so if I were to start, let's say on the A flat here on the D string and just walk through it just sounds like a scale. Okay, so the first thing I could do if I'm not sure what to do at all and I don't have any ideas about melodies is I could just start on one of those targets and just not go stepwise. So let's say I don't go to the next note, but I maybe skip this note and go to the next note on that string. And then come back. That already starts to sound like something. So now what if I took that and jumped to the next note on the scale? Or so you start getting these ideas. Or what if I start up at the top target and don't just go down? What if now maybe I'll go up to the next scale note, and then maybe I'll skip this note and go to this one. And then maybe I'll go up and skip a note. Okay. So you get these little ideas. Now this is also going to bring up technical problems, right? So if I've got to go adjacent string stuff, you're not going to find that in a normal, like, walking your scale pattern, right? So how do I deal with it? Well, I could roll my finger. I could allocate 2 fingers for the job. I could do a finger replacement or a crossover or under, like that, okay? So you have all these different techniques. So let me just kind of show you if I were to mix it up a little bit. Let's turn the backing track on. So if I were to just walk it, right? Yeah, it's okay, but it sounds like a scale. So let's mix it up a little bit. Okay. Cool. Now what if I took some of these notes that are all on the scale and combined them? So I've got and okay, so these are all just different ideas there, right? Now once I take that, what if I do unconventional things with it? What if I slid up to a note, right? So maybe my pinky doesn't have to live here. Maybe, so I can move around. So, or pull off, or hammer, and then mix up those ideas of changing your phrasing with not going in note order. So. Or, and then we've got Okay, Okay, now eventually, you might start to realize as you're mixing the note order up. So let's say if we have a pattern, like if I go, let's see if we go. Okay, you might realize that this note is in the next box. So what if instead of, what if I started way up here, okay, and went, or rather, I think the pattern we did is, see, so you have all these different ideas of how you can move around the neck. Okay, now that's the same philosophy if you were someone who maybe had melody ideas in your head. What you would do is, as you start learning the scales, you start to learn what that sound was, right? So if I was hearing da 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 da, and then da da, and then do da da da. So you start learning where within the scale pattern those notes were, and you're educating your brain about what that interval jump was within the scale so that you can start to do it automatically. Okay, now the other thing you could do, so let's say if you had a melodic idea within the scale, right, or you find something that you like, and you go, okay, I've got my melodic idea, and maybe it's going to go, okay, well maybe, or actually let's make it simpler. Let's just do the beginning, the thing. Okay, let's take 3 notes. So let's say if I know I want to go, now what I could do if I don't have, you know, if I've got ideas about melody, but I don't have ideas about rhythm, I could play with the rhythm. So there's a thing called rhythmic displacement, which basically means, you know, let's say we took a set of notes and we didn't change the note order, but we changed the rhythmic value we gave each one of the notes. Or maybe we put rest in between or something, okay? So let me turn the track on and show you. So let's say if we had, okay, now what if I go, or we got so that's an idea. So let's say if you have a melody, you could do that. You could experiment with all sorts of different rhythms and phrasing with the melody once you have that. Well, what if I don't have a melodic idea, but I have a rhythmic idea? So what if I'm hearing ba 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 dot, or da dot dee da da dot, a da dot dee da da dot. Okay, so it's like, okay, now what if I just started on a target note and I just randomly moved around in the pattern but played that rhythm? So da dot dee da da dot. So if I've got a, see, and that's an idea you could do with that. And you start getting ideas that way. All right, now there's a third thing you could do. Let's say you learned like Iron Man or something, and you learned the solo from that, which would be something like, okay, now it's in a totally different key, but if you were to look at that, you'd be able to identify, or you could get an instructor that would help you with that solo is exclusively in a C-sharp minor pentatonic scale. Well, this song is an A-flat minor. So it's basically thinking of the same chord structure in a different key. So I could lift those phrasing ideas and move them. This would allow you to analyze what another player did to give you an idea of how you might walk around the scale pattern against a set type of chord, in this case minor, to get ideas for that. And you could start to learn that, okay? So you're either learning other people's ideas and seeing what they did with it, or you've got ideas in your head and you're finding them in the scale, and you're playing around with the phrasing, and you're sort of learning what that imaginary guitar player in your head plays like. It's no different than learning anyone else's tabs, right? So for me, I hear a lot of sliding in my head, so I might do things where instead of, see, that's like, it's like that pattern within the box, but if I move it, it starts sounding vaguely maybe Japanese traditional, right? Whoops. Okay, Okay, now if we take that and then we start adding things to it, so if we added the blue note to it, if you think of your small shapes in the pentatonic, you'll have a blue note in between the first small shape, and then an octave higher that note repeats, so it's going to look like it's added on top of the third of the three small shapes, wherever that is. Okay, so I can start adding that. Now, it's not going to sound very bluesy if you go, we don't use it that way a lot. Now, if you're playing fast, you know, that kind of stuff, like Van Halen stuff or Satriani stuff, they'll do that. But if you're playing it slow, it sounds decidedly unbluesy to go, you know. But what I might do is I might slide in and out and use it like a passing tone. So, or I could bend to the note, or I could start from the note, or pre-bending it. And that's kind of how that stuff works. So I could add that where I'm, you know, so I'm taking the concept of jumping around the pattern rather than just going sequentially. See, the next note would have been there, but I jumped over this note to go there, and then did the blue note. See, rather than walking it down. And I also did some phrasing stuff. So let's say if I did the Japanese sort of thing. Now what if I added on top of that notes from the full minor scale? Because that's all in the same key. So then I could combine all of this and be going. And that's how this works. So that gives you a start. If we combine all of that over the track. Now, of course, if you know your rest of your boxes, you have freedom to move, right? Now, I could eventually add chromatic passing tones. So maybe instead of, I could go. So I added passing tones between the notes of the minor scale, or like okay? Anyway, these are just some ideas to get you started with this. Okay, so you just have to start experimenting. The mistake people make is, I'll hear a lot from students, well, I'm not good at this, or I need to get good mechanically at playing the guitar before I do that. And you really have to practice soloing the way you practice an exercise. So, you know, if you practice getting really proficient at picking or legato or something for 5 years and you don't improvise, you're not going to know how to apply that. Okay, that's just like if I go out and I want to be a great point guard in basketball, and I go, well, I'm not going to play in a single game until I perfected my passing and my jump shot. Then none of this is ever going to work. You're not going to have the thought process of how to spontaneously connect your ear without any thought to moving around within the scale pattern because you've wired those pathways over years. So you can have very remedial guitar playing ability and work on improvising and start making melodies. So you just need to start doing it if it's something you want to do. Anyway, I hope this has inspired you to start playing around with some of this. If you're interested in lessons, please contact me and let's talk about working together. Thanks a lot.